Today we are going to fix my old and very Para 3, and as part of the wellness package it will receive brand new Flytanium scales, a thorough cleaning, plus a razor sharp new edge. Along the way I will show you the biggest problems with this specific Spyderco design that you should understand before swapping scales on your own, and after we're done I'll explain why titanium is a big functional upgrade, because it actually improved my knife's action in ways that I did not expect. Welcome fellow seekers of steel! This 8-year-old Para 3 is the first pocket knife that I've ever owned, and it's only fair if I make my very first makeover video with this one. So without further ado, let's roll out the Spyderco shop mat, prep all the medicine, and start the knife surgery. Throughout the procedure, I'll rely on the helping hand, or shall I say helping paw, of my loyal assistant, who specialized in taking things apart, even though he mostly does it with shoes or furniture. As step 1, we need to undress our patient and detach the pocket clip by using this surgically accurate V-Habit driver with T6 heads. Then we take out all the hardware from the show side. For the pivot we are using T10 bits, and the size of the spacer is T8. I highly appreciate the simplistic way Spyderco built the Para 3, as it comes with less screws than other models, which makes takedown less of a headache. However, there are two finicky parts with this design that might make disassembly somewhat difficult. First of all, we need to keep one finger on Spyderco's signature compression lock to open the scales, and then carefully twist the grip apart around the flared lanyard tube, then remove the blade and tuck it away to a safe location. And now that the knife is disarmed, we can go ahead and separate the scales from the flared lanyard tube, which is hands down the most difficult moment of the whole disassembly, because these parts work like big Lego pieces that are stuck together. So I can only take them apart with brute force, but I need to make sure not to apply too much pressure, because that can bend the steel liners or the flared lanyard tube, and if I screw this up, I won't be able to put the knife back together. In this case, the lanyard tube was incredibly stubborn, so I pulled up my Leatherman multi-tool to have more leverage. This allowed me to pop off the front scale that contained the liner with the compression lock, and these two fell apart right away without any tweaking. However, separating the back scale from the liner was much more difficult, because some genius glued them together. So, I had no other choice but to pry the scale apart from the liner with a flathead screwdriver, which was not the most elegant solution, but very effective. And now that we successfully took our knife into pieces, the wellness part can finally begin. I'm reaching for my Ballistol, which is hands down my favorite product to clean off sticky residue from glue and pocket dust. And since it's an oil, it also leaves behind a preventive layer for future protection. As you see, this knife accumulated an extreme amount of dirt throughout the 8 years, especially around the pivot where the scales cover the blade. So, I deployed this dental brush to remove all the gunk, even from the sharpest corners. But still, the most surprising thing for me is the state of these phosphor bronze washers, as they look dull and dirty. And to restore their original shine and smoothness, wiping them off is not good enough, so I have to polish them up with a leather strop, which is my secret hack to improve a knife's action. And now that everything is clean and shiny, the knife is technically ready to reassemble. However, since the blade needs a complete regrind, I decided to sharpen it before putting the scales back, because this step generates a large amount of fine dust that would make our freshly cleaned parts dirty again. So until it's done, I'm setting everything aside and pop open my Worksharp Precision Adjust Professional Elite Pro Max Deluxe Edition, which is the perfect tool for the job, mainly because it comes with guided rods that allow me to select and maintain the exact grind angle with each stone, especially if I combine it with my digital level box that removes all the guesswork. My selected angle for this blade is 15 degrees per side, or 30 degrees total for two big reasons. First of all, I wanted to have a micro bevel that starts higher up to remove all the scars from my heavily used blade. And second of all, S30V is a junk steel with very poor edge retention, so it needs a fine geometry to cut longer. Another thing that I dislike about S30V is that it can't perform well with a polished edge, so to have a knife that can actually cut, I cannot use stones that are finer than 600 grits, which is also true for S35VN, S45VN or even S110V. So if you're about to buy your very first Para 3, I highly recommend picking one with Maximat or Kruger, because in my experience, these are the two best options. After the sharpening is done, we need to soak the blade into some KPL Knife Shield rust inhibitor, which will mostly protect the parts hidden under the scale that I can't clean easily. But of course it will also preserve the shiny new edge a lot longer. This step is kind of important because despite being a quote-unquote stainless steel, S30V actually rusts surprisingly quickly. And only now that everything is clean, shiny, razor sharp and rust proof, we can finally move on with the reassembly by installing these brand new scales from Flytanium. This part of the video should be very short and straightforward since it's basically the takedown backwards. But of course we end up bumping into a big issue because one of the liners refuses to fit into the new titanium scale, since the cutout groove for the compression lock is not milled precisely enough. After wasting 30 minutes off camera by trying every peaceful solution that came to mind, I had no other choice but to literally hammer the liner into place with the bottom of my Leatherman signal. To make this last resort option somewhat safe, I cushioned the scales with my soft silicone pad, so I would not leave any marks. And after smacking the shit out of my brand new scales, the reassembly went surprisingly smoothly. I just put everything back in the right order, and fitting the flare lanyard tube back to its place was also much easier than removing it. Then I inserted one of the washers and locked it in place with the D-shaped size of the pivot and the T10 screw. Then I applied some blue lube from Benchmade, I slapped on the blade, added some more lubrication, then put back the second washer, and by keeping my finger on the lock bar, I carefully sealed the deal without hammering anything else. My philosophy behind reassembling a knife is very similar to changing tires on a car, and to achieve the best result, I'm tightening all the screws simultaneously, little by little. Go in with this crisscross method ensures that all my parts are seated properly without storing any tension, and this technique also guarantees perfect blade centering and fidgety action all at the same time. So when everything is in place, the knife looks nice and also works well, only then I grab some blue Loctite to make my results permanent. Generally speaking, I prefer thread locker sticks, but if I can only buy the fluid, I usually mimic the stick by pouring Loctite onto a paper towel. That allows me to apply exactly the right amount of thread locker. This trick also makes the solution thicker, so it cures faster and holds stronger. And after the Loctite is applied, I check for the knife's action one more time, and if it's still drop shoddy, with no blade play, no lock stick, and the centering is right, I'll leave it alone for a couple of hours until the thread locker dries. And boom! We are back the next morning, the surgery is done, our patient made a full recovery, and now it's healthier than it ever was. As a finishing touch, I also slapped on a paracord lanyard with a white brass Mandalorian bucket to give the knife its own unique personality. And if you're familiar with the series, Din Djarin's gear is always grey and mud brown, so now my Para 3 fits the theme 100%. Wait a second, does this mean that Winston is my baby Yoda? Probably, most likely. Anyways, back to the scales. Despite the difficulties throughout the reassembly, the Flytanium scales have no weird gaps and everything looks perfectly aligned. And I really like this new grip because it makes the Spyderco fit in with my wide range of grey accessories, since I'm a big fan of natural titanium and aluminum gear in general. I have all sorts of knives, pens, pry bars, carabiners and moldy tags that now I can carry together with my refreshed Para 3. And of course, on top of fashion, these Flytanium scales also came with a lot of unexpected upgrades. I clearly remember that before the scale swap, I could push the blade left and right when the knife was closed, which issue is now completely solved. This Flytanium grip also made my Para 3 a lot more comfortable to squeeze, because the new scales have very nice rounded corners, meanwhile the original G10 came with sharp edges. I can also hear a big difference in my knife's action, because previously this Spyderco made kind of a plasticky noise when it closed shut, but now, after the upgrade, it sounds a lot more premium. What do you guys think about this upgrade? Do you like it, hate it, and what other scales would you like to see next? How about these fat carbon ones from Reeves Garage Tech? If you'd love to see these on my PM2, make sure to hit subscribe, and if you wanna learn how to make this gorgeous looking knife lanyard, come and watch my previous video by clicking on this card. Thank you for sticking around all the way, and I'll see you in the next one.